Welcome to the epic presentation of Matt, Caleb, and Evan.
All right. Welcome, class, today to our presentation of academic optimism as measured by the OSI. Here's just a little bit about us. We dressed up for this presentation, so I hope that you can enjoy this. I'd pay a little close attention to right here.
All right, to start this, we're going to give a little review and background of this project and this experiment. First off, we want to give the definition of stress, which is a negative emotional experience. And that plays a big effect into optimism, which is how an individual is able to approach and embrace the unknown. And several studies have been done on optimism and in the academic setting. And there's shown to be a significant relationship between optimism and academic stress levels in college students. As well as there's a study done on first-year college students, and those that had higher levels of optimism were able to adapt better and more effectively in that transition period from high school to college.
So with the OSI, or the Optimistic Student Index, we set out to measure academic optimism in students by focusing on two key points, which is how often one feels accomplished after completing an assignment, and then as well how prepared they feel before taking a test.
How many of you have felt stress while in an academic environment? Show of hands, please. Thank you for your honesty. After encountering in our research that optimism is linked to better academic performance in stressful situations, like the ones you all have experienced, we created the OSI in order to predict how well a student will handle the transition to a more academically stressful environment. This can be useful to guide students to an environment in which they can excel. Composition for the Optimistic Student Index. It's a 10-item test using a 4-point Likert scale. An example of a question that is included on this test is, I often doubt my initial feelings about which answer is correct on a test. The participants in the test could then respond with strongly disagree, disagree, agree, or strongly agree.
All right, and as we see in the demographics to the right, this was a convenient sample performed, and there was a total of 120 people that started the OSI, or our survey, but only 113 of those completed the entire survey. And there's the breakdown here of the ethnicity, the marital status, and then the year in school that each participant did. And as the sample was passed out using Facebook and other social media, as well as it was distributed in each of our different ward Facebook pages. So a lot of our own ward members were able to take the survey and help us out with this.
This is a picture of the making of this presentation. We were helped by Goldfish Next, and they are delicious.
All right, so our results, after a factor analysis, we showed that of the 10 components analyzed, only 2 had eigenvalues greater than 1. Together, they accounted for 102% of the variance, so we kind of overdid it a little bit. Not sure how that exactly works, but the variance was covered. And 7 of the 10 questions, as we can see here to the right, 7 of these 10 items loaded primarily on component 1, and 3 of them here on component 2, while all of them actually have values of 0.4 or greater. So each component actually contributes significantly to measuring academic optimism. With the reliability, we ran a Pearson bivariate, and it showed that 21 of the 45 coefficients that were analyzed in this study did show significance. And we also had a Cronbach's alpha value of 0.76, which shows that our results were acceptable. And we had overall moderate content validity, with 2 items showing superior content validity, 7 moderate, and only 1 with low content validity. So overall, it was an acceptable test that measured what it purported to measure.
All right, and so as far as what we can learn from this test and the OSI, there were several strengths and weaknesses that we learned from it. Some of the strengths include all of the items loaded onto each other, as well as the domains correlated well with each other, as well as supported our overall hypothesis that academic optimism does play a role on stress and our 2 domains of preparedness for tests and accomplishments of completing assignments. As far as weaknesses are concerned, our big weakness is with our sample. And as I mentioned before, it was a convenient sample, and it wasn't representative of neither BYU nor the general college student population, which is the main group that we're trying to get at with the OSI. And another weakness of our study was the inexperienced CVR rating group. They weren't experts in academic optimism, and this was the first time for a lot of them in figuring out which questions would best fit our domain, and so that needs to be addressed further.
As terms of external validity goes, we had low validity, as Evan mentioned, because we cannot generalize the results of our test to other populations, specifically nationwide, and we can't even apply them specifically to BYU because our sample was not representative of BYU as a whole. As our demographics showed, most of them were predominantly white students here at the university, and so we can't generalize our results to everyone at BYU or across the nation specifically, but the test does show promise to get there in the future.
As far as improvements to the OSI go, as we mentioned earlier, not as many of the items loaded onto our second domain as we would have hoped. So we can improve the OSI by creating a stronger second domain. Also, we can make the test more applicable to a broader spectrum of academic settings. This could be done through item revision. And future directions for the OSI could go a variety of different ways. The OSI is the first test that actually attempts to objectively define academic optimism and could be implemented in a variety of educational settings. At the university level, the OSI could be employed to identify whether or not students are equipped to handle the stressors and demands of specific courses and majors. The results of the OSI could be used in the application and scheduling processes. And this test could also be applied to prospective college students as they decide which university would best fit their ability to handle academic stressors. Students' OSI score could potentially guide them to the university that is most suited to their academic capacity and set them up to achieve success.
And just to show our appreciation to each one of you for your participation, we brought a variety of treats. Caleb, Matthew, and I were all slaving away in our kitchens to make all these beautiful treats for you.
Be optimistic like us.